The modern man parades in masks, believing himself clever, thinking the concealment of truth is his greatest weapon, but he forgets that the eye of the thinker, the sharp and merciless observer, is not deceived by masks, but sharpened by them. He forgets that behind every smile lies a shadow, behind every gesture a confession. To read a man instantly is not to believe what he says, but to see what he cannot hide, and in this, if you possess the will to see and the courage to interpret, you can dissect a soul before it even speaks. The art is not learned from textbooks or therapists. It is learned from solitude, from the ruthless study of yourself and others, from observing humanity as a hunter does prey, not with pity, but with precision. There are 18 truths that do not fail, 18 psychological fragments carved from the marrow of mankind's vanity, weakness, fear, and delusion. And if you know these truths, if you carry them not as facts but as instincts, then no man can lie to you, because every lie will be pre-written on his body, his tone, his breath. Remember, words are what the herd uses to mislead. But the body, the timing, the contradiction, these are the scriptures of the real. To read anyone instantly is to pierce through the surface with cruelty and clarity, and to recognize that behind every human being is a beast, either caged, unleashed, or disguised. Before a man speaks, he already tells you everything. His face, an unfaithful servant, reveals the truths his tongue is trained to hide. The moment you walk into a room, watch, not for words, but for flickers. The twitch of an eyebrow, the flash of contempt in a half-smile, the sudden narrowing of the eyes before a greeting is spoken. These are not accidents, these are betrayals. The body you see is the unconscious on display. And unlike the conscious mind, it does not lie. It reacts, involuntarily, immediately, truthfully. This is the first art of reading people. Recognize that micro-expressions are not subtle. They are suppressed. In those brief moments, less than a second, a man's mask cracks, and if your perception is sharpened like a blade, you can cut straight through the disguise. Joy, disgust, fear, anger, guilt, envy. They flash across the face before the conscious mind can intercept them. And the more a person pretends, the more exaggerated these flashes become. The liar smiles too wide. The coward avoids eye contact not for shame, but for survival. The manipulator raises his eyebrows not in surprise, but in strategy. You must learn to see these flashes not as fragments, but as symbols of something much deeper, the primal animal core that modern man works so hard to hide. Civilization has not destroyed the beast. It has only taught him to wear better clothes. But the face remains primitive. It is still wired for instinct, for threat detection, for power dynamics. When a man enters a room and tries to dominate, his chin lifts slightly, his nostrils flare. When a woman feels threatened, her eyes scan left and right unconsciously, the body preparing escape. When someone envies you, there's a microsecond of tightening in the jaw, a flicker in the eye, a brief flash of contempt before the smile lands. Nietzsche would have called this the eternal return of human nature. We believe ourselves evolved, but return always to instinct. The face is the battlefield between the false civility of society and the raw violence of our animal origins. If you can see this war happening in real time, you no longer need explanations or excuses. You know who you're dealing with, but, and this is critical, you must train your observation as one trains a weapon. Not casually, but religiously. Most people are too absorbed in themselves to see others clearly. They wait to respond, they do not watch. But if you want to outmaneuver, outsmart, and out-see, you must become a predator of expression. Cold, still, patient. Let them speak all they want. You already read the confession in the twitch of their lips. To read a man instantly, you must stop believing his words and start watching his biology. The moment before he speaks, that is the moment he is most naked. And in that instant, if your eyes are open, you will see everything. The eyes are the last honest part of a human being. While the mouth spins lies, while gestures are rehearsed and tones are manipulated to craft appearances, the eyes remain wild, untamed, uncooperative, and immune to strategy. They are the final gateway to the unconscious. The man may smile, flatter, swear loyalty, but if his eyes don't match the words, believe the eyes, always the eyes, for they are the only part of the body that has not yet learned to obey. In the study of power, it is never the intention that matters, it is the signal. And the eyes are signals written in blood and instinct. You cannot train the dilation of the pupil, you cannot consciously alter the direction your gaze naturally seeks. You cannot easily mask the lightning, quick glance towards someone you fear, hate, or desire. The untrained observer hears the noise of speech. The master watches the silence of the gaze, for in silence, truth screams. When someone lies, their eyes betray a micro-hesitation, a delay in contact, a shift upward to the left, a blink too long. When someone is attracted, their pupils dilate, the blink rate increases, and the gaze lingers, not on the words, but on the face, the mouth, the form. When someone is ashamed, their gaze collapses, seeking the floor, searching for escape. When someone is angry but suppressing it, they lock their eyes with yours just a little too long, as if trying to establish dominance through stillness. These are not opinions, they are biological facts. And to read them is not sorcery, it is simply remembering that man is not as evolved as he thinks. In Nietzsche's view, modern man has grown arrogant. He imagines himself rational, enlightened, in control. But watch his eyes when he is cornered, insulted, or seduced, and you will see a beast flash from behind the lens. That flicker is real, that instinct is ancient, and that is where the truth hides. All the philosophies, all the ideologies, all the rationalizations, they burn away in the fire of instinct. The eyes hold that fire. It is the final place where the animal remains unconquered. And so, to read anyone instantly, you must first see. Not glance, not observe casually, but see with full presence as a predator sees prey. Fix your awareness on the eyes of the other, not to intimidate, not to signal aggression, but to extract. Let them speak, smile, act, but watch where their eyes go. What they avoid, what they can't stop looking at, the delay, the dart, the tension, these are the tells. The poker game of human interaction is won not by the one who talks the best, but by the one who notices what others overlook. You do not need to ask people who they are. Their eyes will tell you everything, but only if yours are trained to see. And to train your eyes, you must stop being a participant in conversation. You must become the observer of a performance. And the most revealing part of that performance is always in the space between the words, in the eyes. What a person avoids saying is often the most honest thing about them. This silence, this carefully curated absence, is not an accident. It is a defense. And in that omission lies the key to their psyche. For man is not defined by what he boasts of, but by what he fears to speak. He will offer distractions, smoke screens, narratives of strength and innocence. But if you wish to read him truly, study the negative space of his language. What topics cause a sudden pause? What questions trigger redirection? What truths are always skipped over? Therein lies the map of his internal wounds and strategies. Nietzsche reminds us that man builds great castles of morality and logic to protect himself from his own abyss. He becomes eloquent where he is safe, but where the soul begins to tremble, the tongue retreats. It is not lies that give a person away, it is evasions. He might speak boldly of his success, but avoid the cost. He may talk endlessly about what he believes, yet flinch when you ask him why. He may joke when something strikes too close to the bone. Laughter, too, is often a mask, especially when it comes too quickly, too often, or at inappropriate moments. The psyche, under pressure, reveals itself through deflection. Most people reveal their secrets by avoiding them. Their whole life becomes a performance of strategic omission. The failed father never speaks of his children. The insecure woman constantly critiques others' appearances but dodges questions about her own past. The tyrant hides behind ideals but refuses any discussion of his childhood. These silences are not harmless. They are scars. To read someone instantly, then, requires more than listening. It demands interrogation of what is not said. Every avoidance is a confession. Every sudden change of topic, every half answer, every rehearsed platitude delivered in place of raw truth is a flare signaling danger. The liar does not only speak falsely, he also avoids the truths that would unravel his lie. In every falsehood, there is a boundary the liar dares not cross. Watch for that boundary. Push against it gently. The more defensive they become, the more you know you've found the wound. But this method demands that you first conquer your own discomfort with silence. Most people rush to fill pauses, to rescue others from awkwardness. Do not let the silence stretch. Let the question linger. Let the absence speak. The self-deceived cannot tolerate this. They will squirm, fidget, crack jokes, change subjects. This is their soul trying to flee. Observe it. That is where the real self begins. In Nietzschean philosophy, becoming who you are involves facing what you've always avoided. And thus, reading others involves watching what they avoid in themselves. The avoidance is not weakness, it is revelation. It is the clearest signal of where the soul is fractured, afraid, or ashamed. And if you can see that fracture, even for a moment, you no longer see the persona. You see the truth. Every human being walks the world not as a blank slate, but as a page already inscribed with an invisible script, a dominant emotional wound, carved early and deep, around which their thoughts, behaviors, and identities orbit. To read someone instantly is to stop looking at what they do, and instead to ask, what pain are they trying to avoid, compensate for, or repeat? This is not cold analysis. It is psychological warfare. The wound is their blueprint. Find it, and you can anticipate their choices, manipulate their reactions, or simply understand them without ever needing to ask. The wound might be rejection, so the person becomes overly agreeable, desperate to be liked, terrified of being alone. Another wound might be betrayal, so they never trust, always test, always sabotage intimacy to remain in control. Some wounds come from humiliation, leading to arrogance. Others stem from neglect, birthing the need to be constantly validated. People are not mysterious. They are predictable machines built around their deepest injury. The child who was never heard becomes the adult who never shuts up. The teen who was bullied becomes the adult obsessed with dominance. This is not pathology, it is logic, cause and effect. Nietzsche understood that man is not a rational creature, but a wounded one, eternally dancing around his trauma while convincing himself he is free. He builds philosophies, religions, relationships, even nations, not from truth, but from the need to not feel pain again. His identity is armor. His confidence is compensation. His morality is a disguise for fear. And so, to read him, you must become a surgeon, not a judge. You look for the scar, not the speech. You listen for the overcompensation, not the claim. You watch for patterns. Where does he overreact? Where does he shut down? Where does he become addicted, attached, reactive? The pattern is the smoke. The wound is the fire. You will notice that most people are not living. They are defending. Every interaction is colored by a need to avoid the repetition of the original wound. They choose partners, jobs, beliefs not based on alignment but based on protection. They choose safety over truth, comfort over growth, and they suffer because the wound, if not faced, becomes the master. And the master is cruel. If you can spot the wound behind the behavior, you can predict every move. You will understand why the powerful man is still insecure, why the quiet woman is more dangerous than she appears, why the angry friend is really afraid. It's all there, written in the patterns they repeat, the emotions they cannot control, the stories they tell themselves to feel safe. But to master this perception, you must first confront your own wound. You must observe how your own life has revolved around a silent pain you refuse to name. For only once you've seen how you've been ruled by your past, can you see clearly how others are still ruled by theirs. This is not empathy, it is weaponized awareness. The wound is the script, and once you see it, you can read them completely instantly. Most people wear masks, but not out of malice, out of need. Beneath all behaviors lies a core drive, either the pursuit of power or the hunger for validation. These are the two great psychological currencies. And if you can quickly identify which currency a person trades in, you can predict how they will act, what they will fear, and how they can be influenced. This is not manipulation in the cheap sense. It is strategic perception. When you know someone's inner economy, you hold the key to their behavior. The one who seeks validation is easily flattered, easily wounded, and constantly measuring their worth through the eyes of others. Their smile is not for joy, but for approval. Their opinion changes depending on the room. Their ambition is not driven by vision, but by the craving to be liked, seen, applauded. These people fold under pressure, avoid confrontation, and resent rejection like a fatal blow. They are soft on the surface, but emotionally brittle within. To read them is to notice their eyes scanning for approval, their voice rising when praised, their mood swinging based on others' reactions. Compliment them, and they will follow you. Ignore them, and they will crumble or rage. The one who seeks power, by contrast, is not interested in being liked, only in being in control. They may appear polite, charming, even humble, but everything is calculated. They assess weakness, test boundaries, and position themselves above others in subtle or overt ways. They take silence as advantage, kindness as leverage, and loyalty as something to be used. These people are rarely offended, but they never forget. They admire strength and despise neediness. To read them is to notice how they react to power. Do they challenge it, mirror it, or try to dethrone it? Flatter them, and they may respect you, but show strength, and they will truly engage. In Nietzschean thought, man is driven not by morality or reason, but by the will to power, a fundamental force to impose one's form upon the chaos of existence. Even the need for validation is, in its roots, a strategy to avoid weakness, to feel secure. But security is not freedom. It is a cage built from other people's opinions. The powerful, by contrast, craft their world according to their will. They don't seek applause. They demand results, and they can be both noble or monstrous. If you want to read someone instantly, ask yourself, do they bend to the group or bend the group to themselves? Do they fear being unloved or fear being powerless? Do they crave safety or respect? This single observation will tell you more than any biography, and once you know their drive, you can forecast their moves like a chess grandmaster sees a board, not just where the pieces are, but where they must go. Not because they are stupid, but because their desires leave them no other choice. To outsmart someone, you don't need to be smarter. You need only to know what they want more than anything: validation or power. Then you offer the illusion of one, while you take control with the other. Most people wear masks, but not out of malice, out of need. Beneath all behaviors lies a core drive, either the pursuit of power or the hunger for validation. These are the two great psychological currencies, and if you can quickly identify which currency a person trades in, you can predict how they will act, what they will fear, and how they can be influenced. This is not manipulation in the cheap sense. It is strategic perception. When you know someone's inner economy, you hold the key to their behavior. The one who seeks validation is easily flattered, easily wounded, and constantly measuring their worth through the eyes of others. Their smile is not for joy, but for approval. Their opinion changes depending on the room. Their ambition is not driven by vision, but by the craving to be liked, seen, applauded. These people fold under pressure, avoid confrontation, and resent rejection like a fatal blow. They are soft on the surface, but emotionally brittle within. To read them is to notice their eyes scanning for approval, their voice rising when praised, their mood swinging based on others' reactions. Compliment them, and they will follow you. Ignore them, and they will crumble or rage. The one who seeks power, by contrast, is not interested in being liked, only in being in control. They may appear polite, charming, even humble, but everything is calculated. They assess weakness, test boundaries, and position themselves above others in subtle or overt ways. They take silence as advantage, kindness as leverage, and loyalty as something to be used. These people are rarely offended, but they never forget. They admire strength and despise neediness. To read them is to notice how they react to power. Do they challenge it, mirror it, or try to dethrone it? Flatter them, and they may respect you, but show strength, and they will truly engage. In Nietzschean thought, man is driven not by morality or reason, but by the will to power, a fundamental force to impose one's form upon the chaos of existence. Even the need for validation is, in its roots, a strategy to avoid weakness, to feel secure. But security is not freedom. It is a cage built from other people's opinions. The powerful, by contrast, craft their world according to their will. They don't seek applause. They demand results, and they can be both noble or monstrous. If you want to read someone instantly, ask yourself, do they bend to the group or bend the group to themselves? Do they fear being unloved or fear being powerless? Do they crave safety or respect? This single observation will tell you more than any biography, and once you know their drive, you can forecast their moves like a chess grandmaster sees a board, not just where the pieces are, but where they must go. Not because they are stupid, but because their desires leave them no other choice. To outsmart someone, you don't need to be smarter. You need only to know what they want more than anything: validation or power. Then you offer the illusion of one while you take control with the other. The body does not lie. It is the one traitor the conscious mind cannot control. A man may rehearse his words, polish his smile, even study charm, but his posture, his hands, his feet, they always reveal what the tongue conceals. If you seek to read someone without them uttering a single phrase, observe the unconscious language of their body. There, in the tremble of a finger or the stiffness of a jaw, lies the map to their mental state. Most people focus on the eyes, but the eyes are trained. Politicians, liars, lovers, all learn to weaponize eye contact. But few people ever master their shoulders, their legs, or their fingers. The truly trained observer watches these. A person leaning slightly forward is interested, but if their feet point away, they want to escape. Arms crossed may signal defensiveness or self-soothing. The hands that twitch, fidget, or retreat into pockets often signal discomfort or hidden intent. And the most honest body part of all, the feet. They rarely lie, they point toward desire, safety, or exit. Nietzsche taught us that man is not a rational animal, but a reactive one. He does not choose, he is driven, and the body, being ancient, primal, reveals what the polished mind is too slow to mask. In a world of pretenders, the physical is the last honest script. Even silence has texture when you study body language. The person who stands still, breathing calmly with open hands and relaxed shoulders, they fear nothing. The one who paces, shifts weight, clenches fists. They are at war with themselves, no matter what words they speak. It is not about judging one gesture in isolation. No, reading someone means observing patterns under stress. When pressured, does the person become smaller? Shoulders shrinking, neck lowering, eyes darting, that is submission. Does their body expand, voice rise, movement become exaggerated? That is insecurity pretending to be dominance. The truly powerful move little. Their presence speaks louder than their body ever needs to. When someone says, "I'm fine," but their fists are clenched or their breath is shallow, believe the body. When someone smiles but their shoulders hunch and their eyes look past you, believe the body. When someone agrees with you, but shifts their stance or folds their arms, know that the agreement is false. Words are tools. The body is the confession. You must train your eye to see what others ignore. Not just posture, but timing. Not just movement, but why now? Did the smile come too late? Did the nod not match the tone? These tiny fractures between word and motion are signs of dissonance, of lying, discomfort, or manipulation. And once you learn this language, people can no longer hide. Reading the body is not mere psychology. It is philosophy made flesh. It is truth refusing to be buried. And if you can watch others with the cold eye of the sculptor, if you can see through the choreography to the impulse, then you can dismantle deception without uttering a single word. The body is a compass. Learn to follow it. You cannot pierce the masks of others until you have torn off your own. The world is not a mirror until you become a window, transparent to yourself, ruthless in your self-observation. Most men fail to read others because they are still blind to their own motives, fears, and weaknesses. They see others through the fog of projection. They think they're reading people, but in truth, they're only reading themselves, projected outward like a distorted echo. This is why self-knowledge is not merely a virtue, it is a weapon, and without it, you are deaf, dumb, and blind to the true nature of others. Nietzsche warned that the unexamined soul is not merely ignorant, it is dangerous. The man who has not faced his own darkness becomes its slave. He reacts, he resents, he envies, and all the while he thinks he is moral. He misjudges others not because they are complex, but because he is asleep. But once you confront your own chaos, once you stare long into the abyss and recognize its shape within yourself, then a strange transformation occurs. The fog lifts. You begin to see others not as enemies, but as patterns. Not as threats, but as reflections, and you begin to understand them, not with pity, but with precision. To understand the fear in another man's eyes, you must know your own cowardice. To detect hidden arrogance, you must confront your own pride. To spot manipulation, you must first unmask the ways you manipulate. This is not for the weak. Self-examination is an act of violence against illusion. You will see that your goodness was often cowardice, that your loyalty was sometimes neediness, that your confidence was defense. But only through this internal bloodletting do you become clear-sighted, and once you see clearly within, you see with terrifying clarity without. Suddenly, the lies people tell themselves become obvious. The games they play, the roles they perform, the defenses they hide behind, they no longer deceive you. Why? Because you've played them all yourself, you've burned them away, you've sharpened your vision through fire. You cannot read others with clarity until you strip yourself naked of all self-deception. And when you do, you no longer need to analyze with effort. People reveal themselves instantly, their tone, their posture, their inconsistencies. They scream the truth they hope to bury. But you, the one who has already faced the mirror, recognize the shadow behind the smile. This is the final truth. Your capacity to read others is limited by the lies you still tell yourself. Destroy those lies, and perception becomes effortless. Understanding becomes instinct. You don't merely read people. You see through them, not as a god, but as a man who has died and returned. A man who has confronted his own chaos and emerged unafraid. Only then can you walk among the masked without being fooled. Only then can you outsmart anyone without saying a word.